So this clip begins in the soy fields of Brazil, and I'll scoot out of the way so you can see it.
We live in a real world, but I think if you compare what happens today with what happened 5, 6 years ago, it's a big change. I don't see that any possibility of any meaningful...
Yeah, how do I go back? Sorry. Restart. There we go. It will begin in the soy fields of Brazil. It really will. There we go.
Okay, then...
Revolution in Brazilian agriculture is not just helping China to feed its people and Brazilian farmers to enjoy a new degree of prosperity. It's also helping the Brazilian government exercise newfound weight on the world stage. In Brasilia, the country's futuristic capital that was carved out of a tropical plateau in the 1950s, the government has been asserting that weight ever since President Inácio Lula da Silva came into office in 2002. Celso Amorim is his foreign minister.
Today it's not only armies which make a difference, it's also ideas.
Presiding from an office that is dominated by a tapestry based on a 16th century view of the globe. It literally depicts the world turned on its head.
It's very meaningful because President Lula has been speaking about a new commercial geography of the world. Well, there you have Africa at the center, you have developing countries also at the center, the north is south and south is north. So it's a good conversation piece and a bit symbolic.
Symbolic of the Brazilian government's decision to confront the US and Europe in the so-called Doha round of world trade talks. Alongside other developing nations, Brazil wants a level playing field and insists that the agricultural subsidies paid to farmers in the developed world and other protectionist policies must end.
I think we really changed the way negotiations take place in WTO. I have no illusions. I'm not saying it's perfect justice. You know, we live in a real world. But I think if you compare what happens today with what happened 5, 6 years ago, it's a big change. I don't see that any possibility of any meaningful negotiation without the active participation of India, Brazil, South Africa, Argentina, whatever.
A new global trade regime would permit Brazil to take full advantage of at least one product in which it's a world leader, ethanol, known here as álcool. It's available at more than 30,000 gas stations all over Brazil, sells at roughly half the price of gasoline, and 90% of new cars on the roads here run entirely on it. But unlike US-made ethanol, which is derived from corn, Brazilian ethanol comes from sugar, a crop in which the country is abundant. And biofuel is now so ubiquitous here that an enormous industry exists to support the construction of ethanol distilleries. Sao Paulo-based Dedini is the largest supplier of equipment to the industry, while US-imposed tariffs of 54 cents a gallon virtually shut Brazilian ethanol out of the American market for now. The company's vice president, José Luis Oliverio, believes that situation will change. The US, he argues, needs Brazil to help solve its dependence on increasingly expensive foreign oil.
The United States has an objective to blend 10 and then 20% of ethanol in their gasoline. This will be a huge amount of ethanol. And that will open opportunities to the ethanol imported from other countries. And Brazil is the most competitive ethanol producer. So if this will be open, Brazil will use this opportunity.
There are voices in Brazil that argue the country isn't taking full advantage of its unparalleled economic opportunities, as the government here seeks a new dispensation in the economic and geopolitical realms. It speaks of brotherhood and solidarity with its global and regional partners. That leads Brazilian opposition leaders like Rodrigo Maia, head of the conservative-leaning Democrats, to say the government should worry more about job number one.
I think Brazil should emphasize first its development and then worry about solidarity with other countries. We can help the others after we become a leading country internationally ourselves. We still haven't achieved that yet.
And some observers of Brazil's economic transformation agree. At the port of Santos, south of Sao Paulo, enormous quantities of Brazilian commodities are loaded onto tankers every day at the start of their journey to China. Some of this $24 billion in annual trade was sparked by the Brazil-China Chamber of Commerce, which now has 17 offices and 450 members.
Brazil has every condition to become an economic superpower in a very short period of time.